Hi guys, so chapter 7 is on enhancing communication skills in groups. The first thing we always have to remember is that words can be both a bridge or a barrier for communication. So you can think that you're speaking innocently to somebody, just having a normal conversation, but the way that you say something or maybe your tone will convey a different message and can make somebody defensive or hurt. There are three main types of word barriers, and the first is called bypassing. It's basically when somebody has a different definition of the same word as you. The second one is an allness statement, and it's an easy statement to fall back on, but they're usually not always true. And the last one is fact interference confusion. This is somebody responding to something as if they've actually seen it, but they're simply guessing. This can happen a lot when somebody watches a TV show about something and they think they know everything about it. Now, listening for groups. You might be asking, what is listening, or why is it important to a small group? Well, listening is actually a skill that doesn't come naturally. It's something that you can improve through practice, and if it is not practiced and improved, it can be poor listening, and that can cause conflicts within groups. A listening style is the way that somebody prefers to understand or make sense of something that they're hearing. There are four main listening styles that most people will fall under. The first is people-oriented listeners, and they're usually the ones who are comfortable with emotions and feelings. They like to sit and talk stories and listen to what somebody's saying. They're also called other-oriented listeners. The second one is a content-oriented listener, and they are somebody who prefers rich content, and it's usually somebody who will enjoy complex and detailed information as well. They're great as group note takers because of this, and they usually will like something like a textbook. Action-oriented listeners are people who prefer the organized, brief, and error-free version of a message, and because of this, they'll usually help keep a group oriented and on task. Now, time-oriented listeners, which is what I know a lot of people will fall into, are people who are usually very busy, so they prefer brief messages since they don't have time to talk. They're always aware of the time that they have to listen to you, and they're good at keeping a group on a time schedule. Listening obstacles are important to remember because we often will do them without even realizing it. The first one, prejudging, is when you anticipate that somebody is going to say something that you might find offensive, or maybe the person in general, you just don't like them, so you begin to tune them out before they even start talking. You have to remember that good ideas can come from everybody, so doing this is not a good idea. Try to actively listen to whatever somebody says when you're in a small group. Now, rehearsing responses is something that a lot of people do without even thinking about it because our speech rate versus our thought rate is very different. Our thought rate is much quicker, and basically this is what's happening when you're listening to somebody talk and you're already forming ideas in your head about what you want to say in return. An how-to guide for active listening according to our book, the first step is to stop what you're doing and eliminate distractions. Don't text, don't listen to music, anything like that. Step 2 is look for clues that will show you what the person is feeling through their nonverbal cues. This is a great way to tell what somebody actually feels. Step 3, which goes hand in hand with that, is to listen for what the person is telling you. It's not always going to be what they're saying with their words. It could be saying with their body or their tone. Step 4 is if you're not really sure, ask the appropriate questions so that you can understand their message better. And once you do this, use step 5, which is to paraphrase that content in your own words back to the person to show that you understand what they're saying. Step 6 is to paraphrase feelings for clarity. So if you think that somebody is upset, you can go, are you feeling frustrated right now? Because it actually will show clarity, and it might show the person that you're really paying attention to what they're saying and open them up a little bit more. Verbal communication in groups, why is it so important? Well, nonverbal communication is a behavior that you can convey that you don't need to say or write out. It's things like body language, eye contact, seating, spatial relationships, facial expressions, tone, and so many other things. It's important in small groups because it happens actually more than your spoken words. You can have nonverbal communication while you're listening to somebody. You don't have to be talking. And these nonverbal cues can actually show emotions and feelings through them, which will give somebody a better insight into how you're receiving their message. They're also more reliable than words because most people aren't going to actually say that they're upset or don't like what you're saying just to be polite. The main types of nonverbal behavior are emblems, which have a specific verbal counterpart. There's illustrators, which add meaning to the verbal messages that somebody might be giving off. There's an affect display, which communicates emotion. The regulator, which regulates the flow and controls the group's way and path of communicating. And the last one, which is adapters, and it really just helps others adapt to their environment. Eye contact and facial expression are huge nonverbal cues when it comes to communication within a small group. Facial expression can tell a lot to other people about how you receive their messages, and going hand in hand with that, the eyes and the mouth are the most expressive parts of the face. So these 4 different functions that I'm about to show you are ones that your eyes will give that may indicate to other people how you're taking their message. It's showing your thought process, giving feedback, signaling when you're not wanting to talk and when you do, and even showing feelings. Now, vocal cues are something we have to remember too. It's easy to forget. A fancy word for it's called paralanguage. It's basically your pitch, rate, volume, and quality of your voice. A big thing about this is we say it all the time. I've said it to my husband. It's not what you said, it's how you said it. People can pull more from how you say a phrase more than what the actual phrase is. And that is why inferences can be so easily made based on your vocal cues alone. Personal space and seating have a huge role in small groups as well, because it can show what makes somebody comfortable. It shows the trends that somebody feels comfortable with, which is also based off of territoriality, which has to do with animals and how they stake and defend their given areas. It has a lot to do similarly to when you sit at the same seat in a class and somebody sits in it one day. The personal space for social interaction zone, as I've shown to the right, most people understand this, and a stranger is not going to come and invade your intimate space unless they're clueless or not paying attention. To go hand in hand with this, small group ecology will show us how and why people arrange themselves in small groups, which basically is talking about seating arrangements. So based on how you feel in your group and what your comfort level is, you may be sitting in a different spot from somebody else. Personal appearance and environment make a huge role in communicating in groups, because you can make a first impression based on somebody's personal appearance first, and that sometimes can't be helped. But things such as their outfit, their hairstyle, their weight, I hate to say it, but even their skin color can be part of the impression that somebody makes about you. But we also have to remember that environment plays a big part of this too. An attractive environment leads to better comprehension and communication. So if a group has a very detail-oriented task, it's best for them to be in a quiet environment with very little distractions. Nonverbal cues in groups, such as the functions and effects, are important as well. It can have a huge influence on leadership and persuasion. When somebody is a leader, they can change how they are perceived to a group based on the nonverbal cues they use. It has been shown that people in leadership can use more nonverbal cues to regulate the communication. Hand signals, leaning forward, things like that, sitting up straight, moving around the room, even things like that can really change somebody's leadership role. However, you can also use nonverbal actions to persuade somebody else by mirroring them. Sitting the same way as them, leaning in, maybe mirroring their tone also helps somebody seem more confident and persuasive to another human being. And that goes hand in hand with synchronizing your interactions, which will help clarify your integrity. As I said before, people respond to physical and rhythmic patterns in communication, your tone, the way you're sitting. It responds better if it's a pattern, and more people are like that. So these things, because of that, have been known to indicate honesty or dishonesty. Things like a greater lag in response, one that got cut off on the bottom is slower speech, less smiling, unfilled pauses, things like that can show somebody that you might not be the most honest when you're talking to them. Now, interpreting these nonverbal communication cues is what this chapter is really all about, understanding people. So things to look for are things like immediacy, behaviors that show like or dislike, power, which is behaviors that communicate status, and responsiveness, which is behavior that communicates interest in action. Through perception checking and using these things to look for, you can judge others by their behavior and not their intent. Others judge by their behavior and not their intent, and you can do this as well. To use this as a skill, basically there are 3 steps. First, you observe their nonverbal cues. Step 2, you mentally draw a conclusion, but you always have to remember step 3, which is asking if you are correct. The last few things that I have for you to consider when communicating in small groups is the fact that somebody's cultural background or gender can really affect a perception of the communication for them. You have to remember how they're brought up, and who they are might change that. And people respond differently to different things. We're all different. And you have to try to not make snap judgment based on others, and really just take your time to get to know them. And also, don't always trust first impressions. They're not always correct. All right, guys, that's it. Thanks.